Welcome. It's nice to have you here. Today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting, so we'll be relaxing. I hope you have a good environment to explore active relaxation. So what would that mean to have a good environment? Well, maybe whatever environment you have, because it's not really a conditional thing, although I suppose our ability to explore in a good way might be somewhat conditional. But the truth of what it is that we're invited to in this exploration is unconditional, which means that if you have in mind that you have to have certain conditions in order to relax or in order to experience health, wealth, and happiness, then you're making it unnecessarily hard on yourself. And I would say actually you're setting it up so that it's impossible for you to actually experience what it is that you're really desiring. So for now, be willing to explore dropping the conditions, whatever conditions you think you require in order to be able to relax, in order to be able to experience health, wealth, and happiness, to know peace, freedom, love, contentment. So really, it's those can just be words, of course, and then it's not of any real value to you, but you can allow it to be something enormously valuable if you actually receive it. So just hear what's being said there, that you have the ability presently to allow yourself to explore relaxing unconditionally. So all kinds of conditions are there out of habit, and you have the ability to relax unconditionally. Okay, so that's, as usual, I guess that's kind of it. I mean, that I don't think anything else needs to be said. If you can, if you can just accept that sincerely, and then really just take that and run with it, as it were. I mean, just really accept that invitation as an ongoing, open invitation for how to live your life. Then that really is the entirety of what it is that I'm actually wanting to communicate and share in this meeting, because it's enormously valuable. It will really give you everything that you truly desire. It will relieve you of everything that you don't want, even the things that you presently think you want, that you don't actually want. It will relieve you of them much quicker and less painfully than you would otherwise be relieved of them. Because normally we're relieved of those things, kicking and screaming with a lot of grief. We think, oh no, I can't believe I'm losing this thing that's so important to me. But actually, it's the thing that we don't want. So the more that you can accept that invitation to relax unconditionally, then you're relieved of all of the burdens very easily. Really, I'm there are other things that I probably will say, but I just before I say them, I want to again emphasize really truly the the core of this is just the active relaxation, the unconditional active relaxation. And if you think you know what that means already, then you don't, because it's not a thing that you're going to understand. It's a thing that you can be open to. It's the it has to be alive. It doesn't do any good as some dead thing that you've understood. You know, understanding, we all think we need the understanding, but the understanding is of no value because it's dead. There's no aliveness to it. You can't, like, what are you going to do with that? You have the understanding, but so what? See, the understanding is just a deception. It's the thing you think is going to help you in the future, but then the future never arrives. So you're always waiting for that future to arrive when you can use your understanding. But you'll find that you never actually can use your understanding now. You can only let go of the understanding now, unburden yourself of the understanding now, and then you can accept the alive invitation presently, and that actually is what gives you what you want. So don't worry about understanding. Instead, just notice that there's a possibility presently of exploring sincerely this open invitation of active relaxation that's unconditional. I mean, the fact that it's unconditional is another way of saying that you don't have the understanding. You can't have the understanding and have it be unconditional, because understanding is always conditional. You see, you have the understanding now, you based on your present knowledge, but then that's ever changing. So the next moment, you don't have the understanding because the conditions have changed. The understanding is always conditional. The everything's constantly changing, so the understanding also is vanishing. So if you're clinging to understanding or grasping for understanding or chasing after understanding, it's an endless game. Hamster wheel is a good image for that. Constantly chasing, or the carrot on the stick dangling and always in front of you. So just unburden yourself. Notice what a relief it is just in this moment, just to let that go. But again, then we need to be actively engaged in the process of unconditional relaxation. So, because the problem is, if we usually sometimes when we let go of something, then we tend to go asleep, and then we fall back into the same, or we never really leave that same vicious cycle because we're just still in it. So in order to help ourselves out of that vicious cycle, we need to let go of the stuff that we're clinging to, but then accept this open, living invitation of active, unconditional relaxation. And you can notice that's when you really accept that, what a delight it is. So for those who just joined, unfortunately, you've missed all of the important stuff. And I mean that truly. I could repeat it. I will repeat it one more time, but you won't believe it when I tell you. Maybe you will. Hopefully you will believe it. So I'll repeat it one more time. This is an open invitation that you can accept now, and now is eternal. So it's not now and then later you'll drop it. Now you just accept it now, and then see that this takes care of everything. Accept it now, this invitation, an open invitation, a living invitation of active, unconditional relaxation. So hear those words and really receive what they mean. It's active and it's unconditional. There's no conditions for it. So if your mind is very loud, that's fine. There's no condition. If your mind is very quiet, that's also fine. There's no problem. If Your environment is very loud, it's no problem. If your environment is very quiet, is no problem. If your body is feeling wonderful and blissful, that's great. And if your body is not feeling wonderful and blissful, that's also not a problem. There are no conditions for it. You could be vegetarian, you could not be vegetarian. You see, there's no conditions. There, you could be a man or a woman, or you could not identify as anything. You could identify as a dog for all I care. There's no condition. You see, there's no condition at all. But it's up to you to accept it. And in all the possibilities you see, there's always some reaction there because there's some identification. So as soon as there's something that's suggested, there's a reaction. Every word is going to be a trigger for something, and there's a reaction there, and the reaction is good or it's bad. But it's up to you to accept the open invitation that's truly unconditional, and it's only you can do that. You can know that I'll use a loaded word, you can know you're failing at that if you're grasping at something, if you're clinging to a condition. If you say, I can't do that because I feel upset. I can't do that because I don't like this guy. I can't do that because it's Monday or whatever day it is, wherever you are. I can't do it because of whatever reason. I can't do it because, I'm whatever. Then you know that you're failing to accept that open invitation because you're closing. So there you have it. That's the real deal. And I will say it again, this gives you everything that you want. And I mean that sincerely. It gives you everything that you want, then it takes away everything that you don't want. Whether you know that you don't want it or not, it will take it away blessedly. But again, it's up to you to continue to accept the open invitation, because the moment that you close and you start grasping and clinging and defending, then you cling to the very things that you don't want, but usually imagining wrongly that you want them. Well, maybe that's a good place to start. So I said that's the real deal. That's the actual important stuff. And then everything else is of secondary importance. I won't say it's completely unimportant, because it can be valuable in to the extent that it clarifies or points back to what's essential. But just I'm making this point so that you don't mistake anything that follows to be of primary importance, because it's not. I mean that really. I've given already the most important, the only essential important thing, because you don't have to have any great intelligence for this. Remember, it's unconditional. It does not depend upon your intelligence. It does not depend upon your ability to understand, your ability to, you don't even have to speak the language. And it's so strange, but really it's true. You could be, you could be a complete moron. Really, you could be a total idiot. And if you can just do this one thing and accept the invitation to active, unconditional relaxation, then you got it. So, okay. So now we can move on to the second tier. First tier is already covered. If in doubt at any point, if you start to get confused or anything, just come back to what's important. And if you're not sure how to do that, just notice if you're grasping. Notice if you're, when I say grasping, I don't necessarily mean physically grasping, although possibly physically grasping, you could let that go. But notice if you're grasping in subtler ways too. Are you grasping at an identity? Are you grasping at a particular feeling state? Are you grasping at some understanding? Are you grasping at being right? Are you grasping at anything? So you can just just notice if that's happening, and then just be willing to let that go. You can know if you're doing, maybe you wouldn't know if you're doing that. So how could you know if you're doing that? You would know because you would feel bad. Unfortunately, a lot of times people don't even know that they're feeling bad, even though you can't really, I mean, you know you're feeling bad, but a lot of the time people are so confused that they think that what they're calling feeling good, they think that what they're calling feeling good is actually good, but actually what they're calling feeling good is feeling bad. So people are very confused a lot of the time. So just slow down and just notice, if you're trying to defend something, if you've got some position that you got to defend, if you're anxious, stressed, worried, fearful that somehow something that could be said here could somehow harm you, that somehow some idea is going to harm you, uh, that an invitation fundamentally just to be aware of yourself is somehow going to be harmful to you, or that if you were to let go, that letting go could be harmful to you. Just notice that's stressful to be that on guard, that worried, that whatever other words you want to use for it. So you could just notice, actually, that feels bad. Sometimes we've just gotten so habituated to these bad feeling states that we think that's good. It's so strange, but maybe you'll see what I'm pointing to there. Hopefully you won't, because you don't suffer from that. But someone out there does. Somebody somewhere who's going to listen to the recording is going to suffer from that, and so I have to say it so that they can notice it. Because now so more people joining. So for those who are joining, you really missed out, because all the important stuff, you're going to have to go back and listen to the recording, because all the important stuff is already said. Everything else from here on out is trivial in comparison. And I'm saying that with a smile, but it's true. I mean, if I kept repeating it, it would continue to be valuable, but I would probably also, maybe some people somewhere would would not. They'd stop listening. They'd stop hearing. So now for the less important stuff. But I'm still wanting to keep it simple. So I'm not going to overcomplicate it. Well, it's going to be slightly overcomplicated, but I'm not going to overly complicate it. It'll just be slightly overly complicated. Try to keep it basic, though, basic stuff that can help with what it is that we really want, because that's the most important thing. And that's a really good place to start, because if you notice, there's really endless distraction out there in this world. There's no end to it. At least no end in sight. They keep coming up with new stuff, and then recycling the old stuff. So you keep being distracted by all of these things, and you get so worked up about it, so stressed out, so fearful that you're missing out, and that you're failing, and that you're going to suffer in the future, or that you might be suffering now. And all these things that you could be constantly distracted and worried about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, good for you. And if you're really curious, you could just check out social media. Don't do it for long, though, because it will destroy your life. But you can tune into it for 5 seconds and you'd see what I'm talking about. But if you're accustomed to all that stuff, if you're habituated to it, then you have no idea what I'm talking about, because it just doesn't make any sense to you. So I'll spell it out a little bit, just for the sake of clarity, for those who are so immersed in it that they actually have no idea that all the stuff that they're immersed in and habituated to is a distraction. Because the things that most people mistake for quote unquote real life are what I'm talking about, is the distractions, all the drama, all the concerns about where to even begin. Anything that has to do with the economy, an economy, economics, money. That's right off the board. It's like clears away most of it. But really, I mean, all that stuff is an enormous distraction. Now, if it's the less personal it is, the more of a distraction it is, probably, because it really has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with you at all. So if you're concerning yourself with national economics or international economics, or whatever, corporate economics, or any of the big huge distraction, it has nothing whatsoever to do with you. So big distraction. um, Anything that has to do with uh, uh, oh boy, am I going to offend some people with this one? Anything that has to do with managing other people's perceptions of you and how virtuous you may or may not be, and how socially adept you may or may not be. Well, I'm saying all this in a way that may or may not offend people. But let me, if I got more to the point, I guess. Well, that's pretty to the point. But if I got a little bit more pointed about it, I guess it might be more offensive. Concerns about uh, trying to manage other people's feelings. Just big distraction. Now, am I saying you have license to just be a jerk? No, you're gonna get what's coming to you if you're behaving like a jerk. But maybe sometimes you could just keep your mouth shut. Maybe you just don't need to say anything. Um, Rather than getting involved, rather than thinking that it has anything to do with you, rather than thinking that you actually care. That's the real point. So all of what I'm saying is about what's important to you. It's not about what's right or wrong. So maybe right and wrong is another example of a distraction. But you see how these are the things that are so of such great concern to so many people, and they're um, touted as these very important things that people should be concerned about, should invest a lot of time and energy in thinking about and worrying about. And I'm just being honest about it. It's a huge distraction in the sense that it's not what matters to you. It's not what you're here for. It does not have any real importance for you. Maybe it has importance for something. I mean, I'm not going to go, probably does, but what it has importance for maybe is not something that you want in your life. Because here's an important principle, which is, I've said this before, so it won't be news to anybody who's heard me speak, but it's that whatever you give your attention to, there the energy goes. And where the energy goes, that's what grows. That's even a little rhyme there, I guess. But just notice that it's just true. Where you give your attention, just in the most mundane sense, where you give your attention, energy goes there, right? You can just see if you give your attention to if you have a lawn and you give your attention to your lawn, then your energy goes to your lawn, doesn't it? You start putting your energy into maintaining your lawn and yada, yada, yada. And well, I guess the metaphor here is a little bit, I don't know if the metaphor is a little funny on this specific example, but that's what grows, right? I mean, so your lawn care energy expenditure grows, but your investment in the whole thing grows. But you see, what you give your attention to, that's where your energy goes, and where your energy goes, that's what grows. So you should be careful about what you're giving your attention to, because that's where your energy goes. And energy management is maybe a useful thing to give some attention to. If you're unhappy with your results in life, consider that it's maybe an energy management issue. You're maybe just giving your energy to the wrong things. You are uh, a conduit of infinite energy. Maybe you don't think that that's true. Maybe you say you don't feel like you have infinite energy. But the truth is, when you really start to see what's being pointed to here, you'll see the truth of it. You are a conduit of infinite energy, but where your attention goes, there the energy goes, and where the energy goes, that grows. So notice it's not that you have a lack of energy, it's just that your energy is siphoned to the things that you don't want. And your energy is siphoned to the things that you don't want because that's where your attention is habitually going. So all the things that so just start to pay attention in your life to where your attention is going, and see that that grows for you in your life. The more attention you give to, pick a theme, to national economics. Hopefully that doesn't offend people too much. Okay, because probably most of your attention doesn't go predominantly to national economics. So I hope that's an easy one that you can use. We can use as an example without a lot of charge. But you can see if your attention was to go to that, then that's just going to start to be very, very important for you in your life. So it's going to grow. You're going to have, CNN on all, and whatever, all the other things that people, whatever they watch. I don't know what they watch. MSNBC. What do they watch? And something they watch these things, and and that's going to grow in their experience, and they're going to start getting things, emails about these things and newsletters in the mail, and they're going to have social interactions with other people, forming clubs about these things. So it's going to grow in their experience. They're going to think about it all the time. Now, that person might be suffering from all these other things, and they think, oh, I don't have enough energy. I've got these problems. So I've got all these things. But what they don't realize is they've got infinite energy. They're a conduit of infinite energy, but their energy is all being siphoned off onto this thing that they don't actually care about, but they think they care about. And so recognizing that is very important. Seeing what is important to me truthfully, and being willing to stop giving attention and thereby energy to the things that are not important, and instead giving the attention exclusively to those things that are genuinely important, is one of the most important things that I believe that a person can learn to do. I mean, if a person cannot learn to do that, they're really, it's hopeless. I mean, honest to goodness, it's absolutely hopeless for that person, because they're going to continue to behave unconsciously, feeding the very things that they don't want. And then they'll just complain about it, but they'll have no clue consciously what's going on. So this is just very, very important thing. So remember, the very first most important thing is what? It's to accept the invitation of active, unconditional relaxation. That's the fundamental thing. And why is that? Because I'll give you a clue. I'll just spell it out. It's because it is this is directly connected to the other thing that I was just talking about. When you give your attention to this invitation of unconditional active relaxation, you're giving your attention to what you want. That's maybe just revealed the big secret. Well, but maybe it doesn't make sense what I've just said, so I'll spell it out a little bit more. This unconditional active relaxation is another way of saying that you're giving your attention to yourself, not to your idea of yourself, right? Because remember, pointed out that it's not an understanding, it's a living, unconditional, active inquiry presently. So that's none other than yourself. You are alive. I think. No, definitely you're alive. You are aliveness. No, just notice how that's true right now, presently, before you think about it. You could doubt it in thought, of course, but presently, before the next thought, there's no doubt whatsoever. You're alive. You don't know who it is that's alive, right? There's no time. If you don't inject a thought, if it's before the next thought, then there's no time to produce some image or some idea of who it is that's alive. But there's very clearly aliveness. That's undoubtable. Right now, there is aliveness. And who could you be other than that? I mean, see how simple and obvious it is when you just allow it, is that you are here. Mine will say, yeah, what? So who cares? How does that help me? It doesn't solve any of my problems. Look at all the problems I've got. That doesn't do anything for me. It's like, that's not complicated. That's not big and flashy. That's not anything. That's right. What a wonderful thing this is. So you just see that before the next thought, the this aliveness is obvious. And maybe you don't like the word aliveness, whatever. It's not a word. I mean, aliveness is a word, but what's being pointed to isn't the word. It's what the word is pointing to. And so I'm using the word aliveness. You could use any word. It's just to notice what's being pointed to before the next thought. Just see, yes, there's aliveness here, whatever you want to call it. Call it spirit, call it God, call it divine, call it silence, call it, big boom, or whatever they call it, the big bang, whatever you want to call it. Just call it whatever, call it nothing, but see that it's here before the thought. The thought springs forth from it. And you are here. Do you see? Before the next thought, which is, oh, I'm not sure I'm here, or it's obvious I'm here, whatever, the thoughts are like, they're goofy. My thoughts are goofy. But you see, before the thought that determines whether it makes sense or not, or it's true or not, there's just the obviousness of it. You're here. You can't, before the thought comes in to say something about it, it's undeniable. It's totally obvious. Yes, I'm here. It's the big yes. It's just yes happening. And there's aliveness. So there's you and there's aliveness. But there's not two here. There's only you aliveness. Yes. You see, you aliveness is yes, and it's here now. It's not two, it's one. It's here. And so this inquiry of active unconditional relaxation is really just to give your attention to this, to notice this, and you start to see all of the distractions that come up, all of these thoughts, and say, oh, I understand it, I don't understand it, I feel good, I feel bad, I'm there, I'm not there, I like it, I don't like it, when I'm hungry, whatever, all this stuff is coming up. And if you just accept the invitation,